Hello everyone, my name's Radio Mike, this is the Inside of My Mind, and I wanted to do a pretty different video today that talks about one of my favourite shows of all time, The Simpsons, and one of my favourite game franchises of all time, Pokemon. So I decided it would be fun to trawl through The Simpsons as a series and find every single reference to Pokemon in that series and just talk about them a little bit. I think The Simpsons as a show is such a pinnacle of pop culture in the way that it references outward to other cultural artifacts like Pokemon or whatever it may be. And a lot of the writing when these things happen is very subtle and very on the nose, that you kind of have to know the references to understand the joke. And I really like that about the show. So I just thought it would be cool to go through and explain a lot of these references. And I was going to do it all from memory, but then I remembered our old friend on this channel, the internet, and special thanks to the Simpsons Wiki, which has pretty much a list of every single Simpsons reference that's ever happened in Pokemon. So I'm pretty much just using that for reference. While I've got you watching, if you're into stuff like The Simpsons or Pokemon or games or TV or movies or music or anything like that, please subscribe to my channel. Pretty much everyone who watches my videos is not subscribed. I just want to get a subscriber base going, and thanks to everyone who's subscribed so far. Thumbs up the video, subscribe, comment if you like. Just gets the ball rolling on this channel and helps recommend the video. So thanks, and without further ado, here we go! So the first reference to Pokemon in The Simpsons actually happens in Season 10, and when I first read that I was like, wow, Season 10? That seems like a long way into the show, but then I remembered that The Simpsons started in 1989, like the late 80s, early 90s, and Season 10 would have been around 99 or 2000, which is pretty much the time Pokemon started becoming really big and really culturally relevant in the West. Also becoming the #1 most profitable franchise in the world, followed only by Hello Kitty. This happens in episode 23 of season 10, 30 minutes over Tokyo. The whole episode centers around the Simpsons going to Tokyo. As a bit of a Japan fan, this is one of my favorite episodes of The Simpsons of all time, and I think it just really well parodies Japanese culture from an outside perspective. The Pokemon reference in this episode comes from when the Simpsons are in their hotel watching the TV, and a TV show called Battling Seizure Robots comes on. As each of the Simpsons family watches the show, they suddenly break out into pretty much crazy epileptic seizures and are rolling around on the floor. Homer, of course, doesn't see the show, but sees the rest of the family doing this, so he decides to join them. This is, of course, a reference to one of the most infamous parts of Pokemon's history, the banned episode Electric Soldier Porygon. In this episode, which I think has only aired once in Japan, and features heavily the Pokemon Porygon, which is like the cyber digital Pokemon, Ash's Pikachu does a thunder attack which causes immense flashing lights on the screen. Now, all in good fun, but hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of Japanese children watching this show were rushed to hospitals because they had seizures from the flashing lights.
An investigation's underway in Japan into why more than 600 children suffered from convulsions and vomiting after watching a television cartoon program. It's thought that bright flashing lights in the cartoon, Pocket Monsters, were to blame.
This was a pretty intense thing to happen, which led to the episode being banned from rotation, never shown again, and I believe for a very long time the Pokemon Porygon and its evolutions Porygon 2 and Porygon Z were not allowed to feature in the anime at all, even though it was Pikachu who caused the flashing lights. The Pokemon anime actually went into a 4-month hiatus after this episode aired. That's how serious this incident was. It was a massive blow for the Pokemon franchise, which was really on the up, and shares in Nintendo fell 5% after this incident occurred. The way The Simpsons satirizes this is just genius. Like, actually having a show called Battling Seizure Robots is just so blatant, but still on the nose, because if you didn't know about the Pokemon incident, you'd just take this literally as a general satire of the wackiness of Japanese television shows. But yeah, I think the referencing here is on point, and I think this incident is just so crazy. In fact, it's been named as the Pokemon Shock incident. Okay, so next up is one that probably hasn't aged as well as the show would have liked, but it comes from the season 12 episode Children of a Lesser Clod, in which Homer, Rod, and Todd Flanders watch kids say the darndest things with Bill Cosby. And this happens.
Now, my good man, what do you like to play?
Pokemon!
Pokemon? Pokemon with the pokey and the man is the thing where the guy comes out of the thing and he makes the fall down the side.
I always loved this moment as a kid, and I get that Bill Cosby has gone on to be one of the worst people in history, but I have to admit this is still a pretty funny moment, probably more so because it's mocking Bill Cosby. Funnily enough, the Simpsons producers removed the Stark Raving Dad episode with Michael Jackson from rotation. It's not even streamable either because of allegations against Michael Jackson, but the Bill Cosby stuff in all the episodes still remains, which is interesting to me. I always thought it was funny because in the Simpsons world, and Bill Cosby in the Simpsons world clearly has an understanding of what Pokemon is. Like, I just love how he's like, and the thing with the guy with the throws, and that's him throwing a Pokeball, and then he says the guy with the fire and the rah, and that, I always saw that as Charizard for some reason. I don't know. I really like this reference, and I find it really funny. The next reference happens in the season 14 episode, Bart versus Lisa versus the third grade, where Bart is lowered a grade at school, Lisa is raised a grade at school, and they both end up in the same third grade class. At the same time, Bart begins binge watching a lot of cable television and starts having hallucinations in class, and one of these hallucinations is, in fact, Pikachu from Pokemon, alongside a few other recognizable characters such as Bender from Futurama and a Japanese parody of the TV show Friends. This is a pretty simple reference, but I like it nonetheless. I think it's really funny. Next up is actually not an episode reference, but it is a couch gag from season 15 in which the Simpsons family are all representing Japanese characters of some sort, and Maggie Simpson is a Pikachu-like character. We also have Bart as Astro Boy and Lisa as Sailor Moon, which is a pretty cool nod to anime and Japanese culture that I really, really love. Fast forwarding to season 21, now well out of the Simpsons quote-unquote golden age. This one is from episode 455, Postcards from the Wedge, where we see Bart watching Pokemon on TV. And this is what happens in that fictional episode of Pokemon.
Digibot, Go has the crystal light ball.
Wow, how did this show stay so fresh?
I love what Bart says after he watches that show. I think it's a play on the fact that a lot of episodes of the Pokemon anime are really, really similar, and the show and format of Pokemon hasn't particularly changed that much since its inception. But I guess if it's not broken, don't fix it, right? In the same season, 4 episodes later in Chief of Hearts, we also get Bart playing a brand new fad against a bunch of the kids at school called Battle Ball, which to me looks pretty much like what Bakugan was, that fad that was sort of in the late 2000s. And one of the kids says that it makes Digimon look like Pokemon.
You don't know Battle Balls? It's a Japanese card game based on a cartoon, based on an ancient religion, based on a candy bar.
It makes Digimon look like Pokemon.
Again, I think this is a really clever scene. I think that it really highlights how a lot of these Japanese fads sort of come and go, and they're all really similar and really drawing on each other and really capitalizing on what the market wants at the time. Like Digimon came straight after Pokemon, and there were a lot of comparisons between the two, and all of these things were fads. Like, for my age group, it was Pokemon, Digimon, Yu-Gi-Oh!, Dragon Ball, all these sort of Japanese exports into the Western market that just come and go sort of very, very quickly. I think this is a really good play on fads as kids. From yo-yos to Pokemon cards to fidget spinners, these things just sort of come and go in and out of popular culture. In Treehouse of Horror 25, there is one segment in which the Simpsons meet different versions of themselves. One version of this sees them dressed as Japanese or Asian style characters, and again, Maggie is relegated to the role of Pikachu. And this is a great Treehouse of Horror segment. I highly recommend you watch it. There's lots of different styles of animation that the Simpsons are drawn in, and really creative and just interesting to watch, so definitely check this one out. Also in season 26, Let's Go Fly a Coot. This is not a major Pokemon reference. Well, I guess it is, but Milhouse has asked his dad to cut his cheese in the shape of Pokemon characters, which Kirk Van Houten has not done adequately. Sort of more of a fleeting reference, but still a very good one. Always love my man Kirk Van Houten getting screen time in this show, because he is probably one of my favorite secondary Simpsons characters, particularly after my favorite episode, A Milhouse Divided, where he and Luann get a divorce, and we see the way that plays out on Milhouse's life. I just think that episode is amazing, particularly this scene.
It's dignity! Gah! Don't you even know dignity when you see it?
Very recently in the series, in season 28, with the episode Looking for Mr. Goodbart, we get probably one of the most direct references that the series has ever done to Pokemon, which is a direct satire of the Pokemon Go phenomenon of around 2016. In this episode, a lot of the characters of Springfield are playing a game called Pokemon Get, which is a pretty explicit parody of Pokemon Go, and it plays exactly the same. The two Pokemon we see are Rattata and Rattlesnitch, which are probably, well, definitely parodies of Rattata and Ekans, respectively. There are a ton of references to Pokemon in this episode, especially just the way Pokemon Go runs, and a pretty funny parody song of the original theme to the Pokemon anime, which you've got to watch. If you like Pokemon Go, you should definitely watch this episode, because it is really on point. And those are all the major Pokemon references I found from The Simpsons that I wanted to talk about. There's also the season 12 episode Pokemon, which is a reference to the name Pokemon, but the episode doesn't directly refer to Pokemon at all. It's just a name. There are a couple others that I may have missed. Please let me know in the comments below if you know of any others. I know the Simpsons game features some pretty direct parodies of Pokemon. Give this video a like, and as I said at the top, please subscribe if you want to see more of this content. It really helps out the channel. I really appreciate it. If you want to hear me talk a bit more about my life working in radio and loving pop culture and all the crazy stuff I do a weekly podcast where I basically just talk about my week, called 20th Century Boy. You can check it out on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. And I also have a band, Release the Sounds. You can listen on Spotify, Apple Music, wherever you listen to music. It's comedy punk inspired music. I think you'd really like it. Give it a listen. The ending song in the end screen to this video is a song from our album. It's getting really windy outside my apartment. I don't know if that's coming through on the microphone, but for now, all I have to say again is subscribe, like. My name's been Radio Mike. This has been The Inside of My Mind. Catch you later. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.
But I went to run my hand through your hair and I noticed you were attached to string. You were a puppet this whole time. You were attached to string. You were a puppet this whole time. I think back to the meal we ate. I really should have noticed